Rultract instructions for use. Cable replacement. Step 1. Unwind cable. While holding the ratchet by the spool cap assembly, shift the ratchet lever to reverse direction. Pull down on snap clip or rake plate assembly to completely unwind the cable, approximately 16 inches. If the cable is jammed or will not unwind freely, proceed to the next step and remove the spool cap assembly. Note: worn or damaged cable must be replaced at this time with a new Rultract cable. Step 2. Remove spool cap and crank handle assembly. Holding the crank handle assembly, as shown, unscrew and remove the spool cap nut using a counterclockwise rotation. Slide spool cap assembly from shaft of crank handle assembly. Slide crank handle assembly out of gearbox. At this time, note square of shaft and square hole in gearbox. Step 3. Remove cable from pivot hub or snap clip. With the cable completely unwound, hold the pivot hub or snap clip in one hand. Insert the 1/8 inch Allen wrench, supplied with a cable replacement pack, into the cable set screw. Loosen a minimum of 2 full turns. It is not necessary to completely remove the set screw. While wearing your eye protection, remove the cable from the snap clip. To remove the cable, hold the spool cap assembly in one hand and pull on the snap clip or hub. Always wear eye protection when removing the cable. Step 4. Separate spool cap and take-up spool. Pull the cable completely through the spool cap cable guide. At this time, note the flat surface of the spool. Step 5. Remove cable from spool. While holding the spool, remove the cable access plate screw and cable access plate. Note the orientation of the cable access plate and screw, flush with all surfaces. The screw is very small, be careful not to lose it. Once the cable access plate screw and cable access plate have been removed, you will see that the cable is seated in the spool. Pull the cable through the hole. Step 6. Install cable. Insert tip of a new Rultract cable through the same hole. Assure that the cable bushing is properly seated. Replace the cable access plate recess side up and loosely insert the cable access plate screw. Push the outer edge of the cable access plate inward when tightening the screw. This will assure the edge of the cable access plate is flush with the edge of the spool. It's very important that all surfaces are flush. After the cable access plate screw is tightened, the cable must spin freely. Step 7. Reassemble spool cap and spool. Insert the new Rultract cable into the largest opening of the spool cap and through the cable guide. It's very important to align the cable guide with the flat surface of the spool and slide the two pieces together. If the flat surface of the spool and the cable guide are not aligned, the cable will not wind properly. Step 8. Install crank handle assembly, spool cap, and spool cap nut. Slide the shaft of the crank handle assembly into the gearbox by inserting the squared end into the square hole located above the ratchet lever. Note, both squared sections of the shaft must be completely inserted and flush. While holding the gearbox and crank handle together, line up the spool cap pin with the groove in the gearbox. Slide the spool cap assembly onto the shaft. The spool cap pin must be inserted into the groove of the gearbox. If it is not inserted into the groove of the gearbox, the equipment can malfunction. While holding the crank handle assembly and gearbox firmly, screw the spool cap nut onto the shaft by turning clockwise. Hand tighten securely. Step 9. Cable insertion into snap clip or pivot hub. Insert the new Rultract cable completely into the hole until it stops, approximately 1/2 inch deep. Make sure the set screw is not blocking the cable. Tighten the cable set screw with the supplied Allen wrench. Proper tightening of the cable will require some force to compress the cable. Holding the snap clip or rake plate securely will give you the correct amount of leverage. Turn the set screw until it makes contact with the cable. Note the position of the Allen wrench and tighten the set screw 1 to 1.5 turns. Proper tightening of the set screw creates an upset which properly retains the cable. Once the set screw has been tightened, do not reposition the cable. Step 10. Test winding function. Allow the rake plate or snap clip to hang freely. The weight of the rake plate or snap clip allows for proper alignment of the cable on the spool. The total length of the exposed cable is approximately 16 inches before winding. Note, leave 1 to 2 inches of cable exposed to prevent flexing of cable on cable guide at insertion site. This position protects the cable from kinking and allows gas or steam to penetrate during sterilization.